Hi everyone, Kate Bohr and Fiona Pearman joining you for this week's Facebook Live where we're digging into the impact of language and confidence. And I think this is a really simple but important conversation for us to dig into because words matter. Words impact what we're saying to ourselves, whether that's our inner voice and the conversation we're having with ourselves. And we know this plays out hugely in terms of inner critic, imposter syndrome, but equally it matters in terms of how we communicate, how we build brand profile and influence with key stakeholders externally.
Yeah, I think one of the things we notice in our programs, in our discussions with women, they're often unaware of the ways in which language is undermining or reducing their confidence and potentially undermining and reducing the way in which they're perceived by others. And so bringing some consciousness around this is really important as we think about the impact of our words, the impact of our language across our professional experience, across the dynamics in which we have to engage and in which we're seen and others are making meaning from.
Yeah, I think to your point, often there are habitual pieces. I know, I remember I had a partner who used to talk about use language like to be honest with you, or I have to be honest with you. It was really interesting because when you hear that the first time, even though for most of us, any of that sort of phrasing is often habitual and there's no meaning, right? From their perspective, there's no meaning behind it. As a receiver of that, it's like, does that mean all the other times you're not saying that, you're not being honest, right? And so even though most of us would know that that's, I tend to call filler language, our ability to bring awareness to that and to recognize that they are just often language we're using automatically, and then to start to stop integrating that language is powerful because even though many of us would, I don't have meaning behind it as I use that language. Maybe the receiver recognizes that it's not a particularly meaningful piece of words. There are often unconscious messaging and communication exchanges that can be impacted by the use of these sorts of languages.
Yes, I think what we really encourage people, and particularly women we're working with, to do is to start to notice these default habits. Often they're just almost nervous tics. They're just something we're doing on repeat. We're not necessarily overly aware of it. And they can be things like over apologizing, like before you go to say something, saying sorry, or asking permission. It may be before you ask a question, pre-framing it with this may be a stupid question, which says a lot in itself. It's almost immediately like you've highlighted to other people that the question could be stupid, and we're already encouraging them to take meaning and dismissing or diminishing what it is that's actually in the question, which might be really important and really potent to the discussion. I think we often see people saying yes when they'd rather say no, again on default, autopilot. Oh, yes, I'll take a look at that. Oh, yes, I'll do that. Oh, yes, I'll help with that. And just noticing where these defaults come up is really useful because language will constantly be reinforcing for you, but for others, meaning.
Yeah, the one I love about this might be a stupid question is now you're asking everyone not to listen to your question for the purposes of what you're saying, is you're listening to the question for them to judge whether it's a stupid question or it's not a stupid question. So, our tips here is just start to build awareness around if you have any of these default habits and language, asking someone to help you identify those can be powerful. Of course, the minute you become aware of it, it can be a little bit overwhelming because you'll find that actually in many circumstances you use it a lot. And we know that building awareness gives us an opportunity to create choice points. And as someone who has been through this in various different iterations, as I continue to enhance my own communication skill set, awareness means we start to create those choice points and then often just zip it, right? We just kind of eliminate it from our language set. I think it matters because, our words are a huge part of our communication. Yes, body language, eye contact, all those sorts of things, but words do matter. Words convey meaning. And for many of us in a very busy world, this is a major data point for stakeholders, right? If they're seeing you present, speak, stakeholders, whether it's your exco, whether it's colleagues, for many of them, this is either one of the only, and if not the only, it is a high currency communication, I guess, tool. So this is a big part of how you build brand influence, trust within the system you operate in.
Yes, I think as you start to build awareness and bring some consciousness to your language, you will potentially notice quite a few of these things going on. And it's an opportunity to have some thoughts around this and then to kind of challenge and to maybe use some different language. What we do know is that those data points that people are receiving, women are told twice as often as men they need to display more confidence. And our suspicion, our hypothesis around this is some of that is coming from the default language that they hear. They only see you in relatively small snippets. They're taking whatever most recent, most current piece of data they can, and they're making meaning of that. And so if your default is to use some of this minimizing language, if it is that you waffle, that you tend to take a long time to get to the point, they will potentially judge that as a lack of confidence. And your internal meaning making may well be making meaning and deciding that you're less confident as you do those things. So this has a big impact in terms of how people are perceived and our own internal relationship with confidence.
Lots to dig into with this one, which we'll continue to do over the weeks ahead. If you've enjoyed today's confidence conversation, head over to our Facebook page. Feel free to share this with anyone in your world who you know might resonate with this conversation. If you want to go deeper with your relationship with core confidence, head over to our website, coreconfidence.com.au.